Hello, this is Anselm with GameLeap, and in this video we're going to be going over the 5 biggest mistakes that I see every new Vex player make, and how to fix them. So, Vex is an interesting champion. She has had quite the tumultuous release, right? She's really overpowered in her current state, like laughably so. I can't remember the last time a champion released this heinously overpowered, but there are a lot of mistakes that you can make on the champion that make her look relatively balanced. So I'm gonna teach you how to make this champion look incredibly overpowered. The first mistake, and the biggest mistake that I see every Vex player make, is immediately taking their R. When you play Vex, her R has a disgustingly long mark time. It is 4 seconds. This means that you have 4 full seconds to contemplate whether or not this is a good idea for you to dash melee range into a full team of 5. I have killed so many really dumb Vex players. And I mean, these are like high elo Vexes, right? These are Vexes in Masters and Challenger that I'm able to kill because they simply don't realize, or that they don't have to take the R the instant that they hit it. When you play Vex and you hit your R, what should you be doing? You should be looking first and foremost. See how many champions are in the area, see their ranges, see what you need to be doing to play around this, right? If I hit this guy with my Vex R, right, and this guy's over here, what do I need to be doing? I need to be flashing and fearing both of these guys instead of allowing this dude over here to blow me up instantly, right? Because if I come in like this, and I only fear one person, like so, this other guy is free to damage me the entire time. When you hit your Vex R, you need to be looking at the situation beforehand, formulating a plan in your head, so that way you can maximize your chances of success, right? You want to make sure that you're alive when you're done with the play, and you want to make sure that the enemy gets nothing out of the play. So you look whenever you land your R. Now, the second biggest mistake that I see Vex players make is using their R from this kind of range. Vex R is massive. It is huge. It is also laughably slow. So when you're using your Vex R, sometimes it's not the best idea to go for this max range snipe before a team fight begins, because an enemy will simply see this coming from a half mile away and take a step, right? This is a really long travel time. So when you're playing Vex, your optimal range is going to be like here, because this is almost undodgeable, right? This is really fast. People are expecting your slow Q. They're not going to be trying to dodge your R. You could see just how fast your R is compared to your Q when you put them side by side. They hit it essentially at the same time. The R is a little bit sooner, right? But the further away that you are from somebody, the more time they have to react, the less undodgeable this skill becomes, so the worse it becomes, right? Pretty simple concept. When you're playing Vex, instead of casting your R from a half mile away before a team fight starts, walk it in, and I promise you will see so much more success on this champion. When you're sitting at this range and you walk in your R, it's unmissable, it's really hard hitting, and you're able to do a disgusting amount of damage disgustingly fast. You gotta make sure that you're up in people's faces before just randomly casting your R, otherwise you're gonna put one of the strongest abilities in all of League of Legends on cooldown and look like a complete and utter dumbass doing this. Now, next up, the third biggest mistake that I see new Vex players make is actually how you use your Q. When you're using Vex's Q, you want to make sure that you're casting it so that way the fat part is basically touching somebody, right? You want to be making sure that the fat part is going to be what you're going to be hitting the majority of champions with. You don't want to be aiming the thin part unless you're against a mage, and if you are, you want to try to make it ambiguous. You want to try to aim it to their side, right? So that way they walk kind of into it, right? But not so much so that they could see where it's going. If we scuff the hitbox a little bit, you could see it looks like it's going straight towards them, but it's actually denying them from walking this direction. It's denying the opponent from walking this direction in its entirety, right? Because it'll still tag them if they walk to the other side. I see a lot of new Vex players that are just like sitting here, max range, trying to throw the Q at the absolute tip range, and then missing, and then doing it again in 3 seconds because it has no cooldown, and looking really dumb and running themselves out of mana, even though it has no mana cost. This champion is disgusting. Honestly, this is one of the most disgusting champs I've ever seen released into League of Legends, but it doesn't mean that she's easy. So when you play Vex, you want to make sure that you're trying to make your Q as unmissable as possible. You want to be hitting the fat part and getting up in somebody's face, unless they are a long-range champion, in which case you do want to be sitting back and ooming yourself and then using the machine gun Q. Otherwise, you want to make sure that you're hitting the fat part of it, and you're kind of positioning in a way to where your opponent can't really sidestep it, right? Because if you put it right here and your opponent likes to go right, they're going to get tagged. If you put it right here and your opponent likes to go left, they're going to get tagged. There's no winning against this spell when you use it properly. This is how you use it properly and avoid that mistake. Now, the fourth biggest mistake that I have for Vex players is going to be their W button. Your W is a defensive tool. It's a defensive option unless you hit your R and you need an AoE CC, like so, right? When somebody is playing Yasuo and you're playing Vex, and that Yasuo gets slightly in your range, you don't just panic hit the W. You wait for them to be on top of you and with the intent of like jumping on you before you cast the W. If you hold the W, you will have so much of a better time, I promise you, because this skill is instant cast. It's instant damage. You have to predict when it comes out if you're playing against it, right? It's instant cast, even though it has a cast bar. it instantly goes off. This means that it's really easy to hit, while it's also really easy to miss. So when you're playing Vex, if you hold on to this and don't think of this as a damage tool, and instead of you think of it as a defensive tool, you will have a so much better time. You do not need more damage on this champ, 9 times out of 10, right? The W is nice when you can hit it, but it's also a relatively long cooldown, where her Q is a short cooldown. So for harass, you want to be using Vex's Q more often. You only want to be using your W when you can guarantee that it's an AoE fear, like we talked about earlier, or that you're going to guaranteed hit the damage, or you need the shield. It's a defensive option. Don't use it as a purely offensive option, otherwise you're only making use out of half the kit. Use this to mitigate the damage that is being sent towards you when the Yasuo E's and tries to Q onto you, or he EQs onto you. You hit him with W. So that way you get the shield and you get the damage instead of only getting the damage aspect. Really important, really big mistake. And last but not least, the 5th biggest mistake that I see Vex players make is actually the E usage. If you look here, when you're using your E max range, you don't want to be putting this on the very edge of somebody like so. This is really stupid. You know why this is silly? It's because somebody can instantly just recognize that this is barely going to touch them and then walk out of it. When you're using your Vex E, you want to make sure that the center of the hitbox is under the center of your opponent's feet, so that way there's equal distance on every side for them to walk out of, right? You want to put this directly underneath him, and it's basically unmissable. It's so fast that unless they have a dash, they are going to be getting hit by it. If they have a dash, then you get Doom, which means that you get a fear, and then they no longer have a dash, and then you do it all over again, right? If you miss a spell, it's purely because you missed the spell, right? There's nobody else at fault for you missing the spell, right? Because if you're against a champion without a dash, they can't get out of this if you cast this directly underneath them, right? Because it's simply too big and it's too fast. If you're against a champion with a dash and they decide to dash out of it, you're essentially getting that damage back because it's going straight into your passive. You're able to gloom people and get all the damage back, which means that you're essentially at a net positive, right? It's like you didn't miss anything. You got to make sure that you're casting this ability directly under somebody's feet, and this will cause them to dash, right? This causes them to use their flash, this causes them to use their blink, this causes them to use their mobility. Vex likes this, she'll get damage out of this. If you're casting it like so at the very tip of the range, people are going to be able to get out of this without having to use the dash, which means that you don't get the gloom part of your passive, which means that you deal no damage. This is bad. This is very bad. So when you're playing Vex, keep this in mind. Make sure that you're not just randomly kicking out your E and, you know, trying to hit people with the edge of it. You want to make sure that you're hitting them with the interior of the circle, so that way you're able to completely and utterly pop them no matter what they do. There is no right answer for this spell when used properly, so please don't gimp yourself by making this a skill with counterplay, because as of right now, this is not a skill with definitive counterplay. Anyways, this is Unsung with GameLeap. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next one.